Well, we thank you all for being here. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. I'm here with Congressman Issa and members of the Border Patrol and the Union. We've had a very interesting tour here at the San Diego sector. This has become, in many ways, the epicenter of the Biden-Harris border catastrophe, and now we're very concerned in Congress that this illegal immigrant invasion is threatening even the integrity of our elections. Just before the administration issued its June executive order, San Diego was already the #1 spot for illegal crossings, and now, hearing that the June executive order, now that it's been done, we're hearing that things are even worse. We have an absolute catastrophe on the border, and it was engineered by the Biden-Harris administration. Back in January, I took the largest group of members of Congress down to the border at the Del Rio sector, down at Eagle Pass in Texas, and at that time that was the epicenter. And what we saw there was a human tragedy, humanitarian catastrophe. And we're seeing and experiencing that here all along the border and now in San Diego. It's gotten so bad here, in fact, with the volume that are coming across here, that the Biden-Harris administration is now flying illegal aliens from California to Texas for processing, as if Texas didn't already have enough problems of its own. And now we've all seen on our television screens there's yet another caravan of immigrants heading to the border to get in here. And of course they want to come in before the election because they believe that there may be a good chance that President Trump wins that election. I certainly believe that. And this won't be tolerated any longer. And so it's incentivized people to make the journey if they haven't done it already. We know what is going on here, and we've been saying this for quite some time. In the Congress, we've passed resolutions. We passed H.R. 2, which was our signature Border Security Act. It was the most comprehensive Border Security Act ever passed by Congress, but it sits still to this day, 16 months after its passage, on the desk of Chuck Schumer in the Senate. They haven't moved it because they seemingly don't care. Democrats apparently believe in an open border. That's what their actions have shown. That's what their inaction on our legislation has shown. And Republicans believe in border security. We believe that you must have a strong border to have sovereignty, to have your own nation. And we simply don't have that. Now we are very concerned that this influx of illegal aliens threatens the integrity of our elections, as I mentioned. A few weeks ago, the House passed the SAVE Act, which is a common sense piece of legislation that would do a very simple thing. You would have to require proof. The states would have to require proof of citizenship before someone can register to vote. The problem is right now that under existing federal law, the states are prohibited from confirming and requesting proof of citizenship. So when all the illegals come across the border and they're turned over to the NGOs after they're processed by Customs and Border Patrol, and they're shipped out around the country by planes, trains, and automobiles, funded by American taxpayers, by the way, when they go to their local community, the administration officials are encouraging them to go to their local welfare office, for example, and sign up for public benefits. Well, here's the problem. Because of the voter registration laws in the early 1990s, if someone goes to the local office to sign up for public benefits, they're also handed a short form that says, do you want to register to vote? All you have to do to participate in the elections is check a little box and say, I'm a U.S. citizen, and yes, register me to vote. There's no proof required, and we think that's outrageous. So the SAVE Act would fix that problem, and the vast majority of the American people agree that is something we should do. But you should know that 198 House Democrats voted against that legislation a couple of weeks ago, and the Biden-Harris administration threatened to veto the legislation. Kamala Harris and 198 House Democrats want to allow illegal aliens to decide American elections. And right now, and every non-citizen can do that, and there's no real impediment except the honor system. We don't believe that is going to work. Our elections are too narrow and too important to allow this to happen, especially since the administration is now on track to report 10 million encounters with illegals before October. That's the official number. We believe, I personally believe, members of Congress believe the number is probably closer to somewhere in the 16 million person range. Since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took office, 16 million illegals have come across the border. Now, if just a fraction of those registered to vote and participated, they could throw the majority in the Congress, they could change the outcome of congressional races and perhaps even the presidential race, depending on turnout. We're seeing it happen. The state of Virginia is having to remove thousands of illegal aliens from their rolls. Ohio is doing that. Georgia is catching thousands of non-citizens who are trying to register, but the Democrats simply do not care. They believe, as the party of open borders, that they'll gain new voters by allowing illegals to vote. Only Americans should decide American elections. Pure and simple. All across the country, the American people are insisting upon that, but Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress simply don't care, and the border czar and San Francisco radical Kamala Harris bears the responsibility for this disaster. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Congressman Darrell Issa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be brief. I just want to thank the Speaker for coming here. He and I have both been to the Texas border many times, but here in San Diego, the largest and, quite frankly, the greatest number of legal crossings of anywhere in the world. We are for a community that lives on both sides of the border, does business on both sides of the border, and these open border policies have hurt San Diego. Once the safest large city in America, we are not. We are having a problem in crime and homelessness, much of it caused by uncontrolled borders. So when the Speaker said he would come here, I was delighted to join him, and I think today we got a down payment on it, including looking at the amazing amount of fentanyl and other deadly drugs that are coming across the borders, in addition to human trafficking. And with that, I want to thank everyone for being here today, and if there's questions for the Speaker.
Hi everyone, I'm happy to see you all here today. My name is John Anfinson, and I'm the Executive Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council. Thank you to Speaker Johnson and Representative Issa for coming here again to see the border once again with their own eyes, because there's no substitute for being here in person. The men and the women of the Border Patrol continue to be in this precarious position. They're stuck between their desire to do the job that they were trained to do and the White House's policies that prevent them from doing that job. The President's executive order last month is being touted as a success because the number of encounters by the Border Patrol have decreased, and that's right. Fewer people are being encountered by the Border Patrol between the ports of entry, but that's not the whole story, because instead of crossing illegally between the ports, asylum seekers, many of whom are only seeking to abuse the system, are now primarily showing up at ports of entry and airports. So much so that customs officers in June encountered more asylum seekers than the Border Patrol did. So essentially, the only thing that's changed since the executive order went into effect is that the processing is happening in a different place. Customs officers have their own jobs to do, and many of them can't, because now they are having to do the same processing that Border Patrol agents have been doing for years and continue to do. So this isn't just a Border Patrol issue now it's all of CBP. And while fewer asylum seekers between the ports does get some agents back into the field, there's still far too many of them stuck indoors processing, both on the southwest border and the northern border. We still have hundreds of known gotaways every day disappearing into the country. And actually, since the executive order went into place, we're seeing an average of about 2,500 gotaways every week. And for the most part, these gotaways are people who know that they wouldn't be able to use the asylum system to enter for one reason or another, including those that have a criminal history and know that they would get in more trouble if they're taken into custody. Assaults on agents continue because people are illegally entering knowing that this is a unique chapter along the border, and they don't know if this is their only chance to enter, knowing that all they have to do is get past that agent that's standing in their way. So some of them fight. We're grateful that there are still some in the House and Senate that are willing to come to the border again and again to see and shed some light on basically what's happening here, because even today, the issue of border security sometimes takes a backseat to some other news. But day in, day out, 24 hours a day, agents are here dealing with this. And while I'm glad that some agents are back in the field, actually doing their job, far too many are still handcuffed by the White House's policies. So thank you for everyone being.
Take a few questions if you have them.
I can even avoid listening about your concern about the crossing of drugs in the border. Just a few minutes ago, we know about the detention of the biggest narco in the border of Texas, Mayo Zambada. I would like to know your opinion about that, and also in this critical election moment the United States is facing.
Yes, not only is it human trafficking that's a big concern across the border, it's of course the illegal narcotics. And We're told here at the San Diego sector they've got a 40,000 square foot warehouse full of fentanyl that they've seized. Fentanyl is the leading cause of death for Americans age 18 to 45 in our country now, and it's much of the raw materials for the production of that comes from China. It's put together by the cartels and then brought over the border. So we saw today they're using canines to detect drugs and narcotics that are coming across on vehicles. We saw a demonstration where the dogs are able to detect that, and they're non-aggressive, but they're very good. There are thousands of canines that are being employed for this use, but we need many, many more. This is a scourge on the American society, and it has been the cause of so many senseless deaths. They're not overdoses; these are poisonings. You know, some people think they're buying a pain pill on the street, and it's laced with these terrible lethal drugs. And so it's a very serious problem. We have been sounding the alarms about this in Congress over and over and over, and the White House seems not to care because there are obviously certain measures that could be taken with a stroke of a pen. I urge President Biden and Kamala Harris myself to reinstitute Remain in Mexico, to end the catch and release policies, to reform the broken asylum program and the parole system, to continue to build these physical barriers. The agents here have shown us, everyone says, obviously this is a deterrent for people to come across. But you know, there are big swaths of the southern border that are not covered by fencing like this. So
The detention of this big leader will stop the problem.
I wish it would. I'm afraid that the only thing that will stop this catastrophe is the election of a new president. I believe Donald Trump, and he said that in his own words at a rally just a couple of days ago, we'll fix this on day one of the new administration. The Congress is ready to act. We've already voted. The Republicans in Congress have pushed forward border security legislation, very comprehensive legislation that would solve all of this, and the administration threatened a veto over it, and the Democrats voted against it. So that's where we are. I think the election has to take place to really fix this, and I think the American people recognize that, and I think they're going to hold the border czar, Kamala Harris, personally responsible for this, and they should.
Customs and Border Patrol, in a statement referring to the executive action, said, quote, recent border security measures have made a meaningful impact. Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I think that's an overstatement. As you just heard, that's only part of the story. When more asylum claims are being made at ports of entry and in other ways, the volume remains the same. The problem has changed a little bit, but it's no less a crisis. As we noted, there's another caravan headed to a huge caravan of illegals headed to our southern border. They're going to try to take advantage of this. When we were at the Del Rio sector down at Eagle Pass, they told us that 70%, 70, of the people that crossed there, that was the epicenter at that time, are single adult males of military age and capability. These are not huddled masses of families seeking, asylum from persecution in their home country. By and large, these are people coming here probably with ill design. We know we've had tens of thousands of Chinese nationals come across that are now in the border. We've caught hundreds of known terrorists and many on the terrorism watch list. And we have no idea how many dangerous people have evaded capture entirely and gotten into the country as a getaway. The FBI director, Christopher Wray, has testified multiple times in Congress in recent months that all the red lights are flashing. And what he means by that is that this is the most dangerous time in American history domestically, because our enemies have sent their worst characters here, and they are here in our borders. They probably have terrorist cells set up around the country. We don't know. There's so much we don't know, and that's the terrible situation. So the executive order that he issued was too little too late. It is not solving the problem, and you can talk to anybody on the ground and they'll tell you that that's true.
Speaker, you mentioned a little bit about your tour. Can you elaborate specifically about what you saw and how many migrants you encountered either in the field or in processing centers?
Well, we went first to the where the vehicles are coming across and saw the 34 lanes of traffic where they come through, they evaluate, they have frequent and trusted persons who have come across who have a lesser degree of security, and then it goes all the way down range to people who have no proof of their identification. So there are various measures of review and security that are appropriate for all those persons crossing over. They have 30,000 plus people on an average day who come across that border regularly. Now some are coming across to work legally and obey and respect our laws, but others are trying to abuse that and the weaknesses that we have in our enforcement. So we saw that. Then we saw several sections of the border itself. We saw how the fencing and the barriers work, how they're very effective. the reason that it's so effective is that they're not foolproof, but it does deter persons, and it takes so long to try to get over that it allows for the agents to get and address that when it's detected. And so this is a help. It's for the safety and security of our own agents who are taking their lives into their hands when they come and work on the border. We owe this to our agents, and we owe it to the American people to erect these barriers and to have them adequately patrolled. We have to put an end to this. This is an unsustainable catastrophe that the Biden-Harris administration has hoisted upon the country.
What specifically did you encounter migrants, and if so, at a processing center?
Yeah. Well, we didn't go to a processing center today. I've done that at multiple other locations across the southern border. But I wanted to come see, I'd not been to the San Diego sector before, and I wanted to see how these barriers are working. Some of this are new designs, new construction on the wall, and we wanted to check that out. And I had never seen the volume of cars at a port like that. Here, it's multifaceted because you also have the ocean. And you know, we were talking about earlier how the cartels will take boats, some will go miles out into sea and try to loop around. So there's so many challenges. The terrain here is very difficult. Unlike in South Texas where it's mostly flat, here you have obviously big hills, and for a Louisiana guy they seem like enormous mountains. Everything's flat where I'm from. But it's very difficult to traverse that if you have a crossing to get the vehicles there. So our brave agents who are here on the border have a very, very difficult challenge. And in our view, the administration has made their lives tougher, it's made their job harder, and it's made them less secure. And I think that's an outrage.
But the border security deal that was negotiated by a bipartisan committee in the Senate would have added resources, but you said that was dead on arrival in the House. Why?
Yeah, they couldn't get the votes for it in the Senate to send it over even if they wanted to, but that would have actually codified. We had lots of problems with that legislation because it would have codified some of the problems that the Biden-Harris administration had instituted. That was really an immigration bill when we need a border security bill. Congressman Issa and I have worked on comprehensive immigration reform measures on the House Judiciary Committee over the last several years. We were short of passing some of those through both chambers of the Congress, but what we need desperately right now is to get control of this border and seal it up. The president has executive authority to do it. He refuses to use it. He could use Section 212F of the Immigration Nationality Act and solve this problem overnight, but he will not do it. And so his executive order was too weak, too little, too late, and it's not solving the problem. Any other questions? Well, we thank you all for being here. Thanks so much.